Today we're tying the Double Gonga. This small articulated streamer works wonders across the board for freshwater predators, serving double duty during trout and warm water season. It's fairly simple to tie, easy to cast, and deserves a spot in the box of any streamer angler. This fly uses two different sized hooks, a size 1 and a size 4. Start by securing the size 4 in the vise and take wraps behind the eye to lock it in. Lay a thread base down the shank to where it starts to bend. Grab a gray marabou feather from your kit and tie it in so that it extends another shank length or so past the hook bend. Once secured, take a black marabou feather and tie it in on top of the gray in the same configuration. Advance your thread back up to the hook eye, give the feather tags a twist to tighten, and lay back down on the shank. Tie off here and snip the excess, then work back down the remaining tag to add extra security. Now take one of your kit's hackles and prep it by clearing some of the fibers just ahead of the tip section. Lay this down with the butt end facing back and tie in right around where you first added your marabou. Let this hang back for now. Next, apply dubbing to your thread by wrapping it in a thin noodle. Make close wraps up the shank to cover all of your marabou tag, adding more dubbing as necessary. Leave a space of about a hook eye in length at the front of the shank. Take a strip of Velcro or a toothbrush like this and hit the body a few times to tease out any trapped fibers. Then, follow with your hackle, making nice open wraps and brushing the fibers back as you go. When you've reached where you stopped your dubbing, tie off and snip the butt end. Form a small thread head here to taper the body back down to the eye of the hook. Then make a few turns with your whip finisher, close the knot, and snip the excess. Add a bit of head cement here for extra durability, then set this portion of the fly aside for now. Now secure your bigger size 1 hook in the vise. Lay a thread base about halfway down the shank to give yourself room for the eyes. Most importantly, invert the hook. We'll add them on the underside of the shank to ensure that the flies still rise hook point down as intended. Once I've made a few wraps to get the eyes where I want them, I make 2 different motions to really lock them in. The first involves passing the thread over the eyes and under the shank to lock them down from above like this. I'll do this a bunch of times until a small thread dam starts to build up on my wraps. Next, I'll start going under my eyes and over the shank to lock my eyes in from below. You'll start to see your first wraps getting drawn in tight to the eyes as you go. Again, do this a bunch of times until the eyes are well secured. You can even add some glue to these wraps if you'd like. When you're done, finish your thread base down to the hook bend. Now, cut a few inches of the articulation wire from your kit and thread your fly's back half in 2 beads in that order. Lay this section down so that the back bead ends at about the apex of the hook bend like so, and the 2 tag ends of the wire lay parallel to the top of the shank. Start tying in your wire where it meets the back of the shank, making tight wraps and going back and forth over the tie-in area a few times. Cut the tags when secured. I recommend snipping the tags over the eyes so that the sharp wire edges don't get caught up in your bare thread and snap it later on. Next, take another hackle feather, tying it in butt first this time above the hook bend. Advance your thread a bit and follow in tight wraps with the hackle. I use the longer fibers here to make more of a seamless transition between the front and back sections of the fly, and honestly could have gone even longer here. Next, snip the excess feather and wrap back again with your thread, forcing these hackle fibers rearward. Put more dubbing on your hanging thread for the body and keep working up the shank. This section can be pretty thick if you'd like, so don't be afraid to pile it on. Stop when you've reached a hook eye or so behind your dumbbell eyes, and go at the dubbing with the brush again to spread the fibers. Here you'll see me add another clump of dubbing with the fibers aligned, and then tie it in behind the dumbbell eyes. I just do this to add a bit more bulk behind the eyes and help taper the fly down from the head. Now take another hackle feather and tie in tip first like you did on the back end of this fly. Make a few wraps forward in this close section and tie off. To finish this head, we'll have some fun with craft fur. Take a decently thick clump and cut close to the base. Cut the craft fur again to remove the bottom third of the base, ensuring that it all stays together in an aligned clump like so. Leave it on your table for a few minutes while you continue. Tie in the craft fur tips just behind the dumbbell eyes so that they extend over the front of your fly's back half. Snip the excess back a bit, but don't go too overboard. Then grab 2 rubber legs, keeping them joined at the tips. Tie them in at their midpoint and arrange with more wraps so that both ends come off either side of the shank behind your dumbbell eyes. Then advance your thread to in front of your eyes. Now we'll form the rest of the head by creating a dubbing loop. Here's a wider view of this step. First, lengthen your thread and fold the excess back onto itself, forming a loop that's about a few inches long. Make wraps where both ends of the loop come off the shank to close it, and take a few wraps on either side to secure. Then go back to your cut craft fur butt ends. Carefully load them into this open loop, spreading them out so that they evenly fill it. Take a dubbing spinner like this, hook it onto the bottom of the loop, and spin tight to twist the fur into the thread. You should now be left with a chenille-like thread loaded with short craft fur that comes off the loop at all angles. With this loop still hooked in the spinner, start making turns around the back of the eyes, crossing both sides of the eyes, and in front of the eyes until you have good coverage on the entire front head section. When you feel good about it, tie off the rest of this tag and snip the excess. Now it's time to shape. Picture the head of a baitfish, round, fatter at the top, tapering behind the eyes, and cut accordingly. Don't go overboard too quickly, as you can't put anything back on at this stage. Also ensure that you don't cut any of your back-facing craft fur tips from your earlier steps. I should have done this before I started shaping, but whip finish and cut your thread if you haven't already. Give this knot a touch of head cement and you're good to go. The final step is to make nice even stripes with a permanent marker, going all the way up the tapered craft fur tip section. The articulation and pulsing materials of this pattern make it a great one for nice quick strips and tons of movement. A good dead drift can always be worth it as well. Whatever you fish it for, predatory trout, smallmouth, or anything in between, use it well. Thanks for watching.